Welcome to episode 9 of the White Whale Marketing Podcast. I'm Chris, and I got AJ and Haral with me today. The band's back together, you can say. But before we kind of get into anything, as always, we are presented by, or in collaboration, I should say, with the Sport Marketeer. So that is the logos right there on the bottom. It's essentially a newsletter that we write in regards to sport marketing news each week. And the 3 topics we discussed today, you can read it in written form. You go straight to your inbox. Nice, crisp writing with visuals as well, so you can kind of have something saved if maybe you missed something today. So check that out. Links in the bio. And we have 3 topics to cover. But before that, just over my shoulder here, White Whale Marketing. We have some new merch that's available. Shout out to AJ for this logo. We have this one we talked about on the Leo podcast a couple weeks ago. We got to walk it like we talk about, Drake says. So, with that, we have 3 topics today that we're going to discuss. I think they're all pretty interesting ones, as always. The first one is going to be the EPL going global. The second one is in regards to soccer's biggest secret, so lots of soccer today. And the last but not least, and this one's very relevant for White Whale Marketing, is $500 for a burger. I'll leave it at that. You can think about it. Maybe what is that? And we'll touch on that later. But let's get started here with the first topic. AJ, run it for us.
So if you guys aren't really familiar, every year the pre-COVID, of course, the Premier League would always have a lot of their teams, and even in the lower divisions of England as well, kind of just go international, play in these tournaments. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of there's the Audi Cup in Asia, the Asia Cup, the International Champions Cup in the US. But there's been talks recently. It's the first time since around 2008 they've actually spoken about this at the annual shareholders meeting for the Premier League. And they've actually been talking about extending the games from 38 games in a season to 39 to try and accommodate an international game. So I know those of you listening, and even you too, you guys have probably seen the NFL games with I think it's the Jags that played at the London Stadium. Well, now they're kind of flipping the switch, and they're going to try and see if they can actually get a Premier League game that's a league official game in an American stadium. So in one of the major American stadiums, or even in Asia as well. So it's kind of been something they're talking about. And I mean, it's an idea, it's there. So they're trying to make this competition global because it's followed everywhere in the world. People from Asia, North America, every continent in the world follows some sort of soccer league. And very importantly, the Premier League. You got top teams like Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, Tottenham. I would say Arsenal, but not anymore. And they want to take it global. So obviously, I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think? Is it a good call? Is it a good campaign? Is it a good idea, or are you totally against it?
Raul, you go first.
I wouldn't say I'm totally against it, but I'm kind of getting really, really small, like Super League vibes. And what I mean by that is the reception from the home audience. I think a big part about what makes football games in England, especially what they are, and just the behemoth that they are, is because of that loyal support, the hometown crowds kind of selling out like little stadiums of like thousands and tens of thousands of people. Obviously, I think it's important to match that and make sure you're connecting to that global audience, like you mentioned, AJ, because a lot of the revenue that they're generating does also come from the international audience. I don't know how people would react to seeing an important game in, the titleship race kind of being decided overseas and fans not being able to access that from, the comforts of their own home, especially in England. I also wonder what, the TV rights are going to look like, what the TV deals are going to look like, because if there even is a small hint of people getting blacklisted back home overseas in the UK from watching these games because of the TV rights there, this is going to implode quicker than you ever thought it was. So you really have to, I think, while you're trying to appease and attract a global audience, if you're not taking care of the home audience first, like we've seen with the Super League, you're building a foundation upon which it'll crumble.
Yeah, that's a great point that I didn't even think of as soon as you mentioned here. But it is kind of a mini Super League, right? Where they're trying to almost compete with Champions League, right? Where they're going to kind of go global, go different areas, and kind of have that high revenue, whether it's media rights or even just kind of growing their fandom. So I completely agree with that. If it's a good or bad idea, I think, which is basically your initial question. I understand it, right? There's more dollars coming in. That's what every league or team or sport is trying to do. But like Haral saying, I think there's almost more harm in it. If you want to, depends what your goal is, right? I think if your goal is to grow the game of soccer, I think for soccer, best case scenario is these different national or domestic leagues. Those are where people become fans of, right? So let's say here in Canada, the new CPL, that you want people in Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc., being fans of their local club, right? Because then it all starts with grassroots, right? That's how you see this fandom and even just talent growing, and then that's how you see the dollars start getting invested in it. But then if you just have clubs in England, right, just trying to conquer the whole world, then that's where you start getting separated, right? So, yeah, Haral's spot on with the mini Super League thing. And then I agree in regards to sometimes when you almost go looking for more, you get left with nothing, right? Where, if you start going to these, rural or industrial towns in the UK that, that is what their city or town's all about. It's that club, and they just start forgetting about them and going to, I don't know, Mexico for a game, to, I don't know, Sydney or something. Then the fans are like, hey, like these guys just dropped us in a bucket just because they saw dollars somewhere else. So there's pros and cons to everything, but I'm not a fan of it overall, for sure.
I mean, just to jump in here, that's exactly what the shareholders of the Premier League were actually saying. So Sky Sports even reported it's most likely not going to happen where they're going to have a single game internationally. So they proposed another solution to try and expand globally and reach all their target audiences without compromising the fans' viewership back in the local town. So what they're essentially trying to do is, on the years where there's no World Cup or where there's no Euros or if there's a late season or whatever, they're going to try and get multiple Premier League teams and multiple English teams having essentially like almost an all English competition abroad. So it's almost like having a small version of the FA Cup over a period of 3 weeks or almost similar to that, where there is an incentive to win. They have had it before, but there's never really been good turnout or a lot of viewership because most of the time the managers just play their second squad. But what apparently they might do is try and introduce something almost like the FA Cup, where they have a competition that people want to win with the top teams, but in a different country. So would that still, like Haral said, compromise the locals and the viewership there? Would they be impressed with that? It'll still be viewed on TV, but is this an alternate route where there's not, like Haral said, a title-winning game in the league? Instead, it's just a completely separate competition that's played abroad. I know Manchester United have done it in the past where they've gone and played in Sydney when they played against, I think it was the Jets, if I can remember that. Or no, they played Leeds in Australia, a big rivalry game, but in Australia. And if they can turn that into a actual competitive format. So if you see a Man U versus Man City one week, then the next game is Chelsea-Tottenham, then the next week is Man U-Liverpool. I mean, I think that could really, really bring in some good viewership and not really compromise the locals. Because honestly, from even my family, they don't care about the preseason games. But for those in North America and Asia and Australia or wherever, people want to watch a game live. I mean, I almost went to a game in Michigan a few years ago to watch Man U play, drive 9 hours down to Michigan. So it would get amazing viewership here. And is it really a compromise for those back home? Do they really care about it? And then also at the same time, it generates money for all the teams. It generates revenue, right? So is that a good alternative?
I think at that, there's pros and cons. Yeah, if their whole goal is just getting money, building fandom. Look, I understand. Like when I was younger, I think 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I think a couple Portuguese teams were going down to Boston to play, right? And I think Ronaldo too in Manchester went, I think, to Toronto or Boston once as well when I was a kid. So that was something that was of interest, right? Like, oh wow, like, but in reality, they didn't play like you're mentioning. But the things that you're saying, yeah, this starts getting a little more interesting if there's something on the line. But in reality, what makes the FA Cup, what makes the title or even Champions League so like marquee matchup is the history behind it, right? Where it's not just, hey, let's play for this blue ribbon this week, right? This is this new fancy ribbon means a lot, right? Does it really have that impact? And I think at that point, that's where you start getting to, almost, we've talked about this on other podcasts. It's almost them trying to become North American, right? Where, hey, we need to find whatever we can to make money, and it's almost getting into the territory of all-star games. Look at all-star games now. You see the NHL, you see the NFL with what's it called, Pro Bowl, even the MLB, all the major four. they basically have to play games now at the All-Star game just because the people aren't entertained anymore. So essentially, when 10 years, when people are like, hey, we've seen, Ronaldo, well, he won't be playing 10 years, but we've seen Man U, Man City enough in Michigan or Boston now. We want to see these guys playing skill competitions. I think that's what makes the EPL or these European games so special, is because they're far away, right? And because they're only played on Sundays, right? And there's, fixed times, right? And history behind it. Whereas, I don't know. I think after they come to the North America a few times, people are like, okay, seeing it done, what can I find next?
Yeah.
Right. So,
just a side note. Do you guys remember those MLS All-Star games where the MLS All-Stars would play against a Premier League team, but it would just be like Manchester United or another team in Europe just coming and absolutely destroying
They
the
still
MLS
do it.
All-Stars? Or was
They
that
still
something I
do
just
it.
dreamt of? Okay,
well,
so
they
no,
play
they still
Liga
do it.
MX now, no?
Yeah. They usually, I think it was AC Milan a few years ago. They played PSG. They played Man U. They played City, and then this year was Liga MX, the Mexican team. And I'm pretty sure the MLS All Stars won, if I recall.
finally,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah.
I think the proposal you just mentioned, AJ, it sounds like the most perfect solution if everyone is on board. Like, you need the players to buy in, you need everyone to buy in. It's a lot. But what I think is an interesting proposal or an idea that teams need to think about more if they want to grow the game globally, it requires a bit more work than just flying your team out somewhere and just playing a game in front of fans in order to eat a bunch of ticket revenue and earn a bunch of jersey and sales revenue. It requires a bit more investment, in my opinion, but I think it's more feasible. And I think the best example of that is in the CPL. We see the team in Ottawa. They're called Atletico Ottawa, and it's because it's a team that has the backing of Atletico Madrid. And this is an example of Atletico Madrid's presence in the Canadian market. They're not just necessarily being like, okay, we're going to fly over the team here and just try to play a game. They're putting they're putting dollars and they're putting shovels into the ground where they're investing in the youth academy. They're investing in the local talent that is of age to play professional soccer as well. And just putting their logo, their team, their backing, and their whole knowledge and their history behind it. And I think if more teams in the EPL wanted to grow the game globally, you've got to start investing in these types of leagues. You've got to invest in growing the sport, because once you create an environment where, like, let's just say Tottenham, for example, has a team that they sponsored in somewhere in like Saskatchewan or somewhere in Western Canada, if you have that, then you have fans who are not only going to be fans of the local team, they're going to be fans of Big Brother. They're going to be fans of Tottenham. And I assume a lot of people who are attached to Atletico Ottawa will have a much more of a liking for Atletico Madrid above any other team, just because the team colors, the logos, the branding matches the hometown team. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think that is the answer if teams are willing to go that far.
Well, even just, sorry to interrupt, Chris, but just like last touch from my point, I mean, perfect, exactly what you said. Look at Barcelona. I don't know if you guys know, but across Canada, they do FCB Escola, which is essentially a Barcelona academy that you play, where you wear the full Barca kit, you have full-on Barcelona stuff, you get coaches from Spain that come in, but you are under that Barca name. And it brings in that, especially at the youth level, which is so important in North America for the next generation who's going to watch soccer. If you're going to be at FCB Escola and you're playing for the Barcelona North American, like Ottawa Academy, let's say, you're not going to go and watch Real Madrid. They're not going to be your favorite team. Otherwise, you try and find a Real Madrid Academy. Barcelona becomes embedded in your skin because you've played for them. It creates that loyalty. And it's the same thing with marketing in every company in the world. It's brand loyalty. And doing that, like you said, with Atletico, people that are fans of Atletico are going to be Atletico Madrid loyal fans. And the same thing with Escola, and the same thing even with like the Toronto FC teams that they have academies in London. They have the Ottawa TFC. It's creating that brand loyalty, and it's creating a long-term relationship between the youth that once they become consumers and when they're older, they'll stick with that team.
I completely agree. And we should probably go over to the Atletico Ottawa expert for his thoughts on this.
Yeah, but no, that both of you guys hit the nail on the head here, right? Where, Haral, what you're saying is exactly what even people I've spoken to, executives in Europe, right? So top leagues in Europe, I've spoken to executives there, and they said, hey, in their circles that they're talking about, they're like, a lot of us really think what Atletico did or is doing is great, because you kind of get the same thing, right? What, they want more money? Okay, then actually building grassroots, develop it, and you're actually building a fandom there where people feel like it's their own product, whether they're not, being, lent Manchester United for a couple of weeks, right? Here in Ottawa, they actually get their own team. And obviously, I've lived in Ottawa my whole life. And, they had the team before, the Ottawa Fury. turnout would be okay. I went to the game on Saturday, packed. The game was packed. The quality of soccer was top notch. People were incredibly psyched. And I was shocked at the amount of jerseys I saw. Almost everyone had a jersey, basically, right? And let's say you just kind of want to even build the fandom or even kind of get people that little extra taste. Fine, invest in a club here, right? Because then you're actually investing in the grassroots, and then you're actually seeing the profit of it later in what's the word, over time, right? But let's say you have let's say like Barcelona, right? Someone that's homegrown, that's actually associated with the name, like Iniesta. Ship them over to Canada or North America for a little marketing for a few years, right? And sponsorships. And then once he's done, give him a percentage of the team like they did with like Beckham, right? With the Galaxy. I think that's a great way. And I think Messi's gonna end up doing that with Inter Miami. I think they did.
Inter Miami, yeah.
Yeah, so I think stuff like that is a great way to do it. And I think FCB and the Escolas that they're doing there is a nice way too. And I think there's a happy medium where even just investing in these development leagues in these developed countries that are trying to get more into soccer, right? Especially with this more and more immigrants coming to Canada, right? So yeah, I think that we hit the nail on the head there. And as always, we can always go for hours and hours about different topics relating to sports marketing. But now let's get to Haral's topic, soccer's biggest secret. Let's hear it because I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I was scrolling through the feed as I normally do on a regular day, and I came across an article by the New York Times titled, "Why Are Soccer Stars Talking to Ibai Llanos?" And my question was, well, who is Ibai Llanos? And Chris, if you want to pull up the Twitch there for me,
Yeah,
I can give you a quick introduction there of who Ibai Llanos is. But the topic of this and the reason why it's relevant is because he is someone who is disrupting and I would say revolutionizing the way people interact and engage with their stars. So you'll see that little screen there that's Chris was sharing. If we get it back up there.
Just click the wrong.
So you see there, like, yeah. So fun fact, that's not the White Whale Marketing Twitch. That is like Ibai Llanos' Twitch. That's where he lives. He is a Twitch streamer with 7.9 million followers. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see he streams Minecraft, he streams Fall Guys, he streams Among Us. Like,
look at these numbers.
Exactly. So you want to read those numbers out for us, Chris?
Yeah. So he streamed recent broadcast 4 hours. I think that was today for Minecraft, 1.2 million. So that was 7 hours ago. Yesterday, 1.1 million. Just chatting. I guess he's just talking with someone. Just chatting 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Wow, for 9.5 hours. 2.5 million views.
There you go. Well,
and then these are the topics that he streams, right? That you were just touching on.
Exactly. So clearly the man is grinding. But again, let's just answer that New York Times question. Why are soccer stars talking to him? Chris, you want to flip over to that YouTube video there?
Absolutely.
There you go. Well, if you want to talk about soccer stars and meeting Ibai Llanos, there he is. One of his recent videos there, I think it translates to Leo Messi invited me to his presentation in Paris. And this is when Messi was being introduced to PSG. And Ibai Llanos was there behind the scenes with Messi. You can see him. He's getting the autograph there, showing him the jersey. If you look at the likes there, you've got 37,000 likes and over 6 million views on that video. This is just one of his many vlogs that he does with his 7 million YouTube subscribers. What is really interesting about this is that Ibai Llanos clearly isn't the next big soccer guru. He's not a soccer pundit. He's not a soccer broadcaster. But clearly, with the following that he's got, with the engagement he's getting, he is interacting and engaging with stars like Leo Messi and Sergio Aguero. And this is what I meant by him potentially revolutionizing the game. In January of 2020, his Twitch following was at just 391,000, so just under 400,000. And as we saw, he's over 7.9 million now. His rise from January 2020 to now has been astronomical. And he's been achieving an insane amount of views completely outside of the sports world. His interactions with Messi in this vlog here is just the first example that I have to show you about with the digital engagement world. And we've obviously talked about, the importance of streaming and the importance of, esports in interacting with the game. A lot of our conversations, though, so far have obviously been on, we should stream FIFA, which is obviously great. Check out White Whale Marketing for some of that cool content there. And, we should have athletes stream their sport. But here, Ibai Llanos doesn't really stream FIFA as much as he does other games, but he's still having interviews with, soccer legends, and he's getting a fan following from that, which obviously I think the point of discussion there is I've talked for too much, but I want you guys to talk about what do you think about what Ibai Llanos is doing and how athletes are engaging with him. Is this the future? Why do fans like this more than watching, Austin Matthews stream NHL, for example? And what is it about this sphere and what Ibai Llanos is doing that might be the future of how sports stars interact with their favorites, or how the audience interacts with their favorite sports stars, I should say?
Yeah. So first off, these numbers are crazy, right? So, Twitch is a hard platform to even get numbers like that. So that's just phenomenal right there. And then also you can see what you can end up doing that, where he's converted that audience also to YouTube, right? Where he essentially almost has the exact same amount of followers there. And in regard to what you're saying about, athletes and their audiences, I am sold on it. And that is something, that's why we're slowly getting more and more live streaming. We have gaming content on Mondays. This podcast now, if you're listening to this on audio, it's streamed to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So we're trying to get more platforms going live because obviously there's growth there. And I don't know if you guys knew this, before this was White Whale Marketing, I think this is 2 years ago or more. And it was Nascimento Marketing at the time. I actually used to stream with athletes, and the numbers were crazy. So that was before the esports tournament where I met Haral. And yeah, I think me and a Red Blacks player, we played Madden one day, and we were just, chopping it up, having a discussion. And what I found was it was a great barrier. It was a great way to lower the barrier with an athlete, right? And sometimes when you talk to these athletes, they're a little tight, right? They have a wall up. They don't want to say too much. They don't want to say the wrong thing. And then that's the kind of thing you see in interviews or even in news articles. But when you get them comfortable playing Madden or FIFA, or even, just chatting for hours on end, like you see with Iba here, that's where people really get to know, hey, who's Austin Matthews? Hey, who's Leo Messi? Hey, who's Sergio Aguero, right? I think that's where you start getting the rewards of just live streaming. Obviously, there's some issues where sometimes maybe you say things you shouldn't, and then it's out there, and it's not edited. But I think it's a great tool that more people need to do, because I think live streaming, gaming, podcasting, and there's one more that I don't remember from an article I read. Those are kind of like the three big areas for content that even that should be going on in sports. So I'm all for it. What do you think, AJ?
Exact same thing with me. I'm all for it. As you guys know, influencer marketing is absolutely massive. I mean, little plug here. If you guys want to watch a previous episode of the pod, we spoke about Formula E. And, I like the English YouTube scene. YouTube, Twitch are very similar. A lot of them do both. They stream on Twitch and they upload stuff to YouTube. We spoke before. Haral knows them. I'm not sure about Chris, but Mini Minter and Zerka, they were actually invited, even though they don't do anything related to Formula One or Formula E. They were invited to go to the Formula E race, and they promoted it like crazy. It's what I like about it. It's diversifying the audience, right? So you're combining the Mini Minter, who does stuff with the Sidemen, and it's vlogs, and it's FIFA, and it's gaming, and then the Formula E circuit. So you're basically combining the audiences for two, and I think it's a perfect example of what's going on here. Like Ibai, he wasn't really, like you said, Haral, I don't think he's played FIFA or does anything related to soccer, but it's combining those audience, it's going to be very beneficial. And it's something that isn't necessarily able to be done with traditional marketing means, right? So I think it's a great way to bring new people into the audience, to get people watching, and like ridiculous how many millions of views he gets per stream. It's crazy. And I think there's just so much potential there, and many more avenues that can be explored. And like what we were talking about before with Chunks and Philly doing stuff with Pro Direct and working with the athletes with Mason Mount, or even Els the Witch. I'm not sure if you guys know, she's a Twitch streamer and is on YouTube. She does a lot of stuff with Soccer AM and Sky Sports, and so many more influencers now instead of the traditional, hey, let's just get the old people that know what they're talking about when it comes to sport, but actually getting new people in to try and diversify and increase that audience, especially for younger people like us, right? just helps bring in new people and just improve everywhere they can.
For sure. And I think you can start to see some of that transition now and that revolution kind of coming into North American sports. If I ask you guys about which sports are probably the most kind of on top of this, the answer is definitely not going to be hockey. And you guys are right, it's not hockey. But like, for example, if you watch basketball or if you watch any of these, I guess, analyst shows, especially with basketball, they're much more laid back than what you see with hockey and what you see with football even, right? Gone are the days where people want to watch interviews of people dressed up in suits sitting in a studio, hands like on the desks and stuff with big TVs in the back. People want to see like AJ, you just mentioned, people want to see like Mason Mount sitting on like just the lounge couch with Chunks and Philly, just chatting it up, talking about their favorite things to do on a regular basis. And that's where you start to see yourself. I don't ever see myself relating to athletes when they're sitting there at their desk, like talking about like let me break down this play right here for you, Ron. But when you have like if you have Austin Matthews just like kicking it and like playing Chell with Nasher, for example, on a couch that might look similar to yours, that's where you're like, wow, like Austin Matthews does that. That's how I play NHL every day. Maybe you're better than him, maybe then you're not, but none of that matters. It's just you see yourself in that environment and you're like, that's what I want to see. And with the NBA on ESPN, you kind of you're starting to see that a little bit with the Jump and kind of with the studios that they're starting to create. You'll see the players that kind of join there now, like Kevin Garnett, for example, they're dressed a bit more laid back. So I'm starting to see in North America the transition a little bit on regular broadcasting to create that more in-at-home experience. But I don't think you're able to emulate and recreate what you see on Twitch. That's so much more laid back, so much more enjoyable, and that gives you a better access to the athlete than anything on a professional like TV broadcast would ever give you.
No, I completely agree. That's, like I was saying earlier, that's part of the reason we're doing these live streams, right? Where I like to think in regards to white whale marketing, the proof's in the pudding. I like saying that a lot, right? So I don't want to have an athlete come up to me and they're like, hey, like, what should I do? Like, hey, you should live stream, start a podcast game, etc. And we don't do it, right? So that's why we're trying to get these out there. We have someone gaming for us on Mondays. I got to start gaming. I'm not great at gaming. I think AJ and what's it? Malik and maybe there's two other soccer players. There's two other soccer players. I suck, so I don't do it too often. But it's something that we're going to do more and more now, and especially with the fall and more athletes kind of being stuck and just doing, gaming while they're on the road. That's something we're gonna start bringing back where we can, play poker with them, play COD, even though I suck at COD, play FIFA, different things like that. But like you're saying, it's a great way, and that's that human connection aspect that people want to see. So by us kind of proving it ourselves and showing, hey, this is what we can do with it. And you see people like Eva, as you're saying, it's like it almost makes no sense not to be doing it, right? So, I think we've touched on that topic, and I'm sure it's going to be something that comes up again and again. But last but not least, we kind of had a little teaser here for this last topic. I know I said $500 for a burger. You're like, what? What does that mean? That seems a little expensive. Is it gold? No, it's not gold. It's Arby's. You're like, I don't know about that. Anyways, no offense to Arby's here. Let me just pull up this tweet. So it should be right here. And essentially what Arby's is doing with D1 football players is essentially, hey, if you're a running back, specifically that position, and you have the criteria of a certain school, so obviously they want the bigger schools, SEC, Big 12, etc. These 200 running backs can, create a post saying, tonight I'm getting Arby's and get paid $500. Not bad, right? The three of us wouldn't mind $500 for doing a post for Arby's. But when you think of these athletes that have these high influence, is it worth it, right? So I know companies like BuzzFeed and other YouTube channels, they go, is it worth it? Let's play a little game of that, ourselves here. So if you watch this video, they kind of have four main running backs that are the face of this campaign, I guess is what you can say, right? So four running backs that kind of qualify for this program, and I'm sure they're probably getting paid a bit more than $500 because of the face of it, but I'm going to use them as an example because they're average or they're the typical running back that kind of applies for this, right? So we have four here. I have all of their Instagrams, so we can kind of take a look, and then we'll kind of go from there, and I'll give you guys the value because we fun little fact here. White Whale has the software to do that, where we can say how much a post is worth. Yeah, so this is the first one. It's an Ohio State running back. 37.2 thousand followers. Not bad, am I right? And yeah, so these are kind of his posts, right? So we always talk about being personal, as we just were. Lots of football here. Oh, only football. It's only 6. So it's football, and then he has a nil deal. As you can see here, he puts nil. So remember this post, okay? I'll just say that because I already know the numbers. So I ran them. Max Borghi, another one, 14.1. So about half of the amount of followers. So remember that. He did the post here, 4,000 views. So it's pretty good.
It's got merch.
Yeah, lots of football, as we said. So if I were to ask you, hey, what's Max other than a football player? Hey, he gets an injury, or hey, it's the off season. What are we going to do with Max? You don't really know because what can you tell here, right? So third one is Sean. This one I can run the numbers because it's not a professional account, but it's 31.3, so good numbers. Engagement's not great, to be honest, 1,800 for likes on this one. But once again, lots of football. Has his own apparel line, so that's interesting. Has this video again, 3,200 views. Last but not least, if you're watching this video, this is the cover of today's episode. It's the running back for Notre Dame, 31.3, so similar amounts to the other 3. Video of almost 6K. Wow, that's really bad now that I see that. 600 likes on that post. 10K on this one. So on and so forth. Okay, so we have these in mind. And let's the first question I'll ask before we kind of dive in. Without knowing anything other than the information I gave you, does $500 seem worth it to post an ad for Arby's on your social media if you were this guy with 31,000 followers, captain of Notre Dame, running back, big school? What do you guys think?
I mean, just for this guy, first impressions are his social value, just from what we know, his social value is definitely more. Just from looking at his engagement, what is that, like 10,000 likes before we actually run the numbers, 10,000 likes, 30,000 followers? Like the engagement rate on that is ridiculous. His social value is worth way more than $500, especially playing in Div 1 and in the future if he goes to the NFL, $500 is nothing. Like personally, like as an athlete, and for these guys as professional athletes, you got to build a brand and you got to be very careful with who you associate with. Obviously, you're not worried about a fast food chain like Arby's, but you don't want to, for $500, it's not really worth it. It's just a single post. It's $500, but you have more potential there. Your social value is worth way more than $500. So there are definitely more, especially with the recent news, like obviously not very recent now, but you can brand yourself and you can get money off of your personal image and likeness. $500 for a guy like this, not a lot, not worth it.
Fair? Haral, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think to touch on and basically elaborate on what AJ is talking about, because I completely agree with all he's saying here. Another reason why I wouldn't take $500 if I was any one of these athletes is, like you mentioned with the feeds, there's no authenticity. Like people are gonna know if I'm posting myself with an Arby's burger, well, like quote unquote, I'm a sellout. So I think we've talked about this like time and time again, and we're gonna continue talking about it because it's important. In order to kind of sell your value and show your worth, A, you got to know how much you're worth, and B, you got to put yourself in the right situations to win. For example, like if we got bring up a football analogy here, right? If you're up by like 20 points and it's a fourth and 20, you're not going to go for it if it's the fourth quarter. You're going to punt it. And similarly here, I'd punt this. Like, I'm a D1 athlete. I am hopefully going to get drafted into the NFL. I've got tens of thousands of followers here. If I'm not a huge fan of Arby's and, I'm not a big like cooking guy, I'm not a huge food guy, you can't tell from my feed, these are the kinds of things I like to do on a daily basis. And if I can't find a way to incorporate the Arby's thing into my feed, unless I can replace a football with an Arby's burger and it makes it look like I'm running it like the Heisman Trophy, like a running back, which if any one of these wants to recreate as a post, like get in contact with us. I think we have some good ideas here.
That actually might be the cover of this. I think that is the cover of this, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, geez, the Arby's beat me to it. But what I'm trying to say is, if it doesn't fit the feed and it doesn't fit the aesthetic, I know we always make fun of people, or we know someone who's like, I got to do this for my aesthetic. This is for my feed. My aesthetic is important. And I think like when you're an athlete and you're trying to monetize your platform, the aesthetic is really important. And for none of these athletes what I've seen so far, I would, if I saw the Arby's post or if I saw them post with Arby's, I would scroll by it and not really care about it at all. So I think for Arby's as well, they're obviously trying to get in cheap, but I think you're not setting yourself up for as much success as you'd like if you're not working with the right athletes and you're not obviously valuing the right athletes at what they're worth.
Yeah, no. So I completely agree with what both of you guys are saying. Obviously, we've gone through numbers for different athletes, for months now. So you guys probably have a better understanding than others do. But like Haral saying, I think that where this does make sense, because obviously some athletes it doesn't make sense because not everyone's going to go to the NFL. But like we saw, one of these running backs, he literally just has all football pictures. 5, by the way. Come on. If you want to build a brand, do more than that. And then he has the Arby's post, or the car post, where it's clearly him getting the bag. But if you're like doing something where you're a foodie, you're trying these different sandwiches, burgers, whatever, hey, this makes sense because that fits into it. And this isn't even just leaving the bag on the table or even, hey, chasing the bag. This isn't a bag. This is $500, right? So it's not anything crazy. And this is the thing that we push our athletes and the athletes that work with us. I think they know it is. I'm not going to sign someone a $500 deal. If it's $500 over a long period of time per post, hey, we'll do that because it's actually building a connection or even making something authentic where, hey, you're partnering with the brand now, right? Where you're not just selling out as you guys touched on. So I completely agree with what you guys are saying. And now let's get to the nitty gritty of this. So this post here that you guys see, classic football post for a D1 athlete. For this Kyron Williams, it's about 10K in social value. Okay. If you're Arby's, you're like, hey, that's what they're probably thinking. They're like, hey, we want to get $10,000 worth of value. And just so people can be aware of how much authenticity can make a difference, let's go to this next post here, where it is the Arby's one, right? You remember we're touching on this? Let's just load it here. So now that I just said that, how much do you think of social value this got? Not how much you got paid, but how much social value you think it is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I am going to say, it's obviously it's gonna blow 500 out of the water for sure, but I am going to put my money on 7,500.
I'll say around just under 5K.
Okay, so it's actually 1,400.
Jeez.
So you see the huge drop off. So when I was doing the numbers earlier, I think there's one running back where, you know what, I think Arby's got the exact social value for them. Essentially is, hey, there isn't a connection there for their audience, right? So Arby's here clearly got triple of what they paid, but it's hurting his brand is what we're trying to get at the end of the day for this Kyron Williams. Because, when he's doing sponsor posts, he should, when he's working with a sponsor and they're helping push it, he should be surpassing 10K, right? In regards to social value, and he's diminishing it. So that's something that you can already tell they're like, hey, there isn't a fit. And as cool as it probably is to say, hey, I partner with this large brand and maybe they're going to be including me in these videos and pushing me everywhere. Clearly it's not translating. And I guess maybe you guys can start seeing the theme here that we're going to have. So not this athlete because I don't have the numbers for that one. But this Max Borghi, remember, so he's the only one that has about half of what everyone has. So let's look at 2. Props to this guy as well. And Sean Shivers, both of them have their own merch line, which is very cool. We have our own merch, as I said, behind me here. Check it out. But yeah, so his own merch post. How much you guys think this is? 14K followers. Anything in mind? Significantly less is what I'll say as a hint.
For the merch post, 2K?
I'd say around that.
Yeah, so well, you guys are spot on. It's about 1,900. And then you have this football one as well. Obviously, football ones do extremely well because they are athletes. I don't have that one, so it's too far away. But so let's just do this one. This one's obviously does perform as well because it's not him. necessarily. It's more of kind of pushing something. So now we have Arby's again for him. So this one actually did 1,400. So his brand, didn't affect it as much as it did for the Kyron Williams. Or no, this is Kyron Williams. Oops. There it is. So this one's 1,000 for Max Borghi. So clearly it does affect his brand as well, where usually he does do better. But it's getting a little closer. I'm saying, hey, Arby's is kind of close depending on the running back. And it really depends on, hey, how big your brand is. And to be honest, for 14,000 followers, you should be doing much more. And last but not least, we got this dog. You remember? We were talking about this post. Love this post. Because, anyways. So the first one I'll start you guys off with is this one. So he did this post yesterday. Nice, classic. Hey, he's connecting with the fans. This is 6,500. Okay?
Jeez.
Worth of social value. And then, just so you have this in mind, what's this guy's name again? We're going to go to this one. And obviously this isn't the Arby's one, but it's just to go to show you how big of an impact this has. Okay? Take this one is where it's worth guessing. Take a guess how much this one's worth. So remember, this guy has 6 posts.
Yep.
5 are for sponsors. And this one, or 5 are for football, and 1 is for sponsor. And clearly he's very happy. He's all for this branded. It means a lot to him. This is a partnership where he truly feels passionate about it. And, he loves Rick Tom Automotive.
My God,
So-
man.
Throw a little 10 grand in the mix. 10,000.
Really? So you're going above. So his regular football
This
post was
post can't be
6,500.
worth it.
Oh, 6,500. Maybe like 4,000 maybe.
No, this post is way too. There's so many problems I see with this post where I don't want to value it something where like I couldn't. If I ever if I was talking to Treveon and I sent him this post or this flyer, for example, and he was about to repost it exactly as it was, as someone as sports marketing guys as we are, I could not be bothered to pay him more than. I would not pay more than $1,000 for this exact post.
Drum roll, please, boys. Give me a drum
Let's
roll.
see.
Please.
What are we talking here?
Starts with a 2.
Okay.
Don't tell me
Ends with
20.
a 3. There's a 1 in the middle, and that's it. 200.
Okay, thank God, bro. Thank
Jesus.
God.
Thank God.
I thought with the number of likes and stuff, there might be a bit more of the valuation there, but man, there is nothing. Like, look at the comments there. All I can comment is a flame emoji and being like, "All right, my boy's got his bag." There's nothing else I can get out of this post other than the boy's getting his bag.
Yeah, and look, let's reiterate here, right? Shout out White Whale Marketing, our company, the sport markets here as well, because we're just trying to provide our opinions and even some advice in regards to sports marketing. But we're all for athletes building their brand, getting the money when they can, and actually making partnerships and meaningful relationships. But we're trying to show what to do and what not to do, and clearly this kind of just shows the huge range athletes have, right? If you can maintain and you can have people like White Whale Marketing help you maintain that 6,500 or even push it to 10K. And fun little fact here, all the athletes we work with, they have all tripled their social value and have maintained that triple, or even sometimes their post. I think one time we had a guy whose post went 10x. Honestly, it was a personal post, but that's what you want to see. We don't want to see crashes like this, right? So that's the importance of having sport marketeers, I should say, helping you, right? So shout out to Trey, shout out to all these guys for getting their bag and trying to build on their nil and kind of maximizing the spotlight, as I like to say. But there's a right and there's a wrong way to do it. And if you continuously do posts and you're going to start working with brands who actually know their numbers, they're like, hey, we're not going to work with you. Why would we pay you? I don't know. Let's say they paid them a couple $1,000 for this. And they start seeing these numbers. They're like, why the hell am I going to pay this guy this much money? Right? So we're just trying to inform, hopefully, those watching, those at companies, those in sports, those at teams. You think about this. You think of us, and you're like, hey, you know what? let's give them a ring, and let's talk about this because we think we have creative ways, and that's why we're working with athletes to, help them build something. So in case, knock on wood, an injury happens or decide to kind of move on or retire, they have something to work off of, right, off their passion project. So, I think this was a nice little way to end the podcast, as it's directly relevant to what we do, right? So something we do every day. Pretty interesting. Well, yes, I moved the Sport Marketeer, but any final reactions to the $213 for that post?
Oof.
Yeah. You guys were expecting. How are you?
Yeah, I was reading the post and it says we're excited to partner with him on his used Chevy Camaro or something like that. So if he's getting a Camaro for like this partnership, you know what? I'm not gonna complain. He's focusing on football. He's getting that bag and stuff. But like it's definitely a small W for sure. But like we've been talking about with everything, like your body, your money, your time, and your mind, it's all an investment. And if you start small like this, it's hard to work your way up. But if you're a D1 football player, you're starting off higher than a lot of these athletes already are. You don't want to start from the ground up when you've already worked so hard to get up to where you are. So fingers crossed that companies start taking advantage of these new NIL deals and start, undercutting these players. And here's to hoping these players start to, find some good advice, maybe tune into our pod a bit more and start to secure even a bigger bag.
Yeah.
You can fit a lot of Arby's for more than $213.
Yeah. And look, exactly what you're saying here, right? All for, these athletes, maximizing their nil. But we're just saying, hey, how can you, while you're in the spotlight, while you're playing at Ohio State, how do you make sure when you get a sponsorship deal, you're not just taking that money and you're running, but you're more so surpassing their expectations. So we're like, hey, we want to go back to this guy because we see the success in this campaign. We see the value it provides, right? So, I like stuff like this. This is kind of the cool stuff I like doing. And, and just in regards, I forgot to mention this earlier. Last thing I'll say, because it's a little promo for when this is coming out, but this for September 28th. So this is either tomorrow or 2 days ago. The Route episode 80 is coming out. So that's a little update on White Whale Marketing. And then 81, which will be the next week, first week of October, will feature in regards to esports, someone from Alpine Racing Team, so an F1. So he touches on esports and different things like that. And, it's something we're touching on in regards to streaming. And you're saying how big Rocket League was a success for them, right? Where they were partnering with the club before, and they actually even had to go make their own Alpine esports team because it was such a success. So 2 very cool pods under the White Whale Marketing brand. Check those out on our YouTube channel or even on any audio podcast or on our website as well. So unless there's anything else, guys, no?
For me.
I'm all good for the week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you to everyone for listening. Do not forget to subscribe to the Sport Marketeer. Link is in the bio. Everything we chatted about, you can get it sent directly to your inbox. And that's us from White Whale Marketing. And have a good week.
Peace.